Balotelli, Aguero!
This is the Premier League. The top flight of English football is the richest league in the game's history and is the most watched sporting league there has ever been. Unsurprisingly then, in a time where the world is more and more connected than ever before, the best talent from all over the globe seems to find itself within the cloudy shores of England, battling out for money, power and success. But it wasn't always like this. In fact, it wasn't too long ago when there wasn't a single overseas player plying their trade in English football, until that all changed with one summer and one footballer in particular. This is the story of Osvaldo Ardiles, the forgotten pioneer of the world's favourite sports. Osvaldo Ardiles was born on the 3rd of August 1952 in Cordoba, Argentina. He joined the youth side of Instituto de Cordoba aged 13, however unlike many other players continued his education, studying a law degree before eventually dropping his education aged 21 to turn pro. Ardiles made a name for himself as an incredibly talented player both on and off the ball, able to beat defenders off a dribble or combine with teammates before reading space and floating into it. Yet despite being visually incredible and one of the most talented Argentine players in one of their greatest ever eras, in my opinion his greatest natural talent wasn't his technical ability, but instead was a mental one. Ardiles had a unique and powerful internal drive and hustle, partnered with a special footballing mind, meaning that despite never being exceptionally fast or powerful and having a fairly diminutive 5'7" frame, he was able to impact the game from midfield in ways he probably shouldn't have. After just a single professional season at his boyhood club, he departed for a more successful Cordoba side in Belgrano, once again staying for just a single season before moving on to then 5-time national champions Club Atletico Huracan. It was during his time at Huracan where Ardiles cemented himself as one of Argentina's best players, breaking into the national team in his first year at the club, scoring 4 goals in just 8 national team games in 1975, and after 3 years he had made himself an ever-present in the side before the 1978 World Cup, which was to be hosted in his home country of Argentina during a very critical period of world history. It's almost impossible to talk about the 1978 World Cup without talking about the truly horrifying state of host nation Argentina at the time. Between the years of 1976 and 1983, an estimated 30,000 people were victims of killings or forced disappearances by a military dictatorship in Argentina led by Jorge Videla. Videla had a huge problem with his public perception not only within Argentina but also worldwide, however was able to use the 1978 World Cup as one of the most blatant examples of sport washing in history to hide the truth of his regime to the world and glorify the state of Argentina as a country. Focusing now on the football side of things, Ardiles' strong performances for club and country going into the tournament made him a near ever-present in the national side, starting 6 out of 7 of Argentina's games at the World Cup, proving himself as one of their star performers all the way through to the final, where they would win their first ever World Cup, firing Ardiles into the spotlight worldwide. Rumours of course then started, linking him to a glamorous move to a club on European soil where football was becoming richer and richer, and therefore a destination more and more attractive to South America's greatest players. Fellow Argentines like Roberto Martinez at Real Madrid and Mario Kempes at Valencia had made their way to Spain, with other South American stars having previously played for some of Italy's biggest clubs, and in Ardiles' own words, he had thought about a move to Europe in the order of Spain, Italy and France. However, England didn't even cross his mind. And to be honest, his thinking was understandable. In the 70s, Spain and Italy were the dominant forces in European football, spending more money than any other league, and were also culturally the most similar to South America, and not only was the weather in England ugly, but so was the football. From hooligans in the stands to some of the worst pitches you'll ever see, England wasn't exactly the prime location for any South Americans looking for a move to Europe, and even if it was, the nation had a ban on signing foreign players in order to protect homegrown talents and give them a path into the first team. However, over the course of just a few years, everything would change, with Britain initially joining the EU in the mid-70s before in 1978 where the Football League finally lifted the ban on foreign players, and so when everyone else in the division was looking at the best European talents to bring to England's first division, one side was looking to do things their own way. In July 1978, Tottenham Hotspur had just been promoted from the second division, and so with their return to the top flight, they aimed to do something special in order to prevent another relegation back down to the second tier. And what better way to make your mark than the signings of Argentine duo Osvaldo Ardiles and Ricky Villa, marking the first time English football had seen world champions since the country won it in 1966. Despite just coming off a World Cup win, from the moment they arrived on Great British soil, the two were doubted and even ridiculed, with many saying foreigners wouldn't be able to deal with the physical nature of the English game. And furthermore, Tottenham's style of play didn't exactly suit the silky pair, with Ardiles even stating that the beginning was very hard. He was a player renowned for his technical ability on the ball, however Tottenham barely utilised the midfield in possession, playing long ball football to get the ball from back to front as directly as possible. Ardiles quickly adapted though, chasing the ball and getting stuck into duels, and it didn't take very long for crowds in North London to warm to him, earning himself the nickname Ozzy and inspiring a further footballing change in the capital. At the same time that Ardiles and Villa had arrived, there was another player named Glenn Hoddle cementing his place in the first team, who was unlike your typical English footballer and, funny enough, probably shared more similarities with his Argentine midfield companion. Inspired by their signing of Ardiles, Tottenham became one of the first teams in England to ever play out from the back, with a clear instruction that the ball had to go through the midfield of Hoddle and Ardiles before getting to the forwards. In their first season back in the top flight, Spurs finished a solid 11th before making it all the way to Wembley 2 years later for an FA Cup final against Man City, with Osvaldo Ardiles playing a key role throughout this rise. And after Ricky Villa scored twice to win Spurs the FA Cup after a replay, Tottenham's two Latin Americans had truly broken down an invisible wall in England. A year later, when the club would win the cup again, as well as finishing runners-up in the League Cup and managing an impressive 4th place finish in the league, before another huge world event occurred, impacting Ardiles in a similar manner to the 1978 World Cup. The Falklands War was a 2-month-long conflict between Ozzy's home nation of Argentina and the one he called his adopted home in the UK, and despite British victory, relations between the two countries was at an all-time low. Neither Villa or Ardiles had been able to feature in the FA Cup final of 1982, and it soon became clear to Ardiles that it still wouldn't be safe for him physically or mentally to play in England for the 1982-83 season, and so a loan move to PSG was agreed. Ozzy failed to really settle in the French capital though, and after returning to Tottenham, injuries hampered the rest of his time in England, eventually leaving Spurs in 1988 and retiring a couple years later. However, despite his playing career now being concluded, his impact and success in English football was far from over. In 1992, England's Division 1 was rebranded to the Premier League, very quickly manufacturing itself into the richest and most powerful division on the planet, with this success coming off the back of imported foreign talent. From Salah to Cantona, Henry to Ronaldo, players have come from all over to play in England, and despite the fact that Ardiles never actually played in the Premier League, it's clear to see that his influence in the English game turned it into what it is today. Plain and simple, without the magician from Cordoba, Argentina, the Premier League simply would have never come into fruition. And without the Premier League, world football would look a whole lot different today. He may never have had the success of your Agueros or Haalands, but it's fairly undeniable that Osvaldo Ardiles is one of the most influential players to have ever played the sport. And the fact is, he well and truly changed football forever.